Welcome everyone, thank you so much for joining us on the Battery Insiders podcast. We're here live in New Delhi or near to New Delhi for the India Battery Show. And we have a really exciting day here, and I'm exceedingly excited to have Dr. Rashi Gupta with us today, who is the CEO of Vision Mechatronics. And I think we had some great discussion yesterday and some CEO roundtables, and I think in some way, the way to describe you is as a pioneer in the battery manufacturing in India, because you started already in 2015. And maybe if you could start with that, what's your own story into batteries?
Yeah, I'm also fondly known as Battery Valley of India. When I started in 2015 with lithium batteries in India, everyone told me this is a wrong investment. You will lose all your money, and I was like, no, I'm not going to lose my money, let me just do it. And even if I do, it's my money, I'm not taking anybody's investment. I'm bootstrapped, so it's my money. And then I think I did a good job with that, and I'm here today with you at the podcast, so I think I've done a good job there. And it was very difficult for me to understand, back then there were not many investments happening in the battery space, so it was very difficult. So from my existing business of robotics, I got the money invested into lithium batteries, and then we made this whole show really successful. Today I just do not do the first life, but I'm also doing this. We have launched at this battery show India's first high voltage second life, or a repurposed battery, in association with JSW Motors India. So that's a big step, and in terms of sustainability, in terms of circularity of lithium batteries, and giving that EV a new life. So the product is also called Relive.
And congrats! I think it was really exciting, and I think Second Life is a big topic also being discussed, I think, all around the world. I think there's different approaches in different markets. So maybe if you could share a bit more about starting on that. For India, why Second Life? Why do you think that makes sense?
I think it really makes sense to have a Second Life battery, because see, what is happening is India is a very sensitive, price sensitive market. So what happens is, there is a gap. There's a traditional battery storage with the lead acid and the traditional inverters that are there, and then there is this lithium ion market. So there is a gap, and this gap is a deterrent for the adoption of lithium in India. So what I found out that CNI sector, for that matter, or the residential sector for that matter, is not adopting to these tech, because they find it a little capital heavy. I should not use the word expensive, but capital heavy, and then you are stuck in the game there. So this gap that we have from this old technology to the new technology is something that can be bridged with the Second Life, giving them the comfort and performance of the first life, similar to the first life, yet having a price band which is almost same as the traditional batteries. That would give them a comfort to actually transit into the newer technologies, have a easy adoption, and see the reliability of the new technology as well. Because people today are also scared, what if tomorrow the technology changes? I have invested so much of money into this, and tomorrow, or maybe the prices fall, which we have just recently seen that there was a very strong free fall into the pricing of the lithium batteries. So they feel that I have made a wrong investment. So Second Life will give them that cushion, a comfort zone, to come out of that barrier.
That's interesting, because you touched on the topic of price reduction, right? And of course that's exciting, right? Because it really makes electric vehicles and electric batteries more affordable. But of course, if you put Second Life, it's a challenge in some way, right? Because if your upfront battery gets so much cheaper in the time you use your Second Life batteries, that always has been a big discussion in Europe, I know. How competitive can Second Life be, especially when the first life batteries drop so much in price? Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you think it's going to stabilize soon?
I think the prices will stabilize soon. It is also, given the geopolitical stress that everyone is going through, the whole world is going through right now, I think it will stabilize soon. It should not be such a big stress. But see, every product has a space in the market. Every product. You get coffee at the roadside stalls also, and you get coffee at Starbucks also, okay? And there's a difference. So every product, there is somebody to take in the market. You have to find which market segment your product fits. And I really feel that this would make a lot of sense, because the sourcing cost has already been absorbed by the first life, okay, so that would reduce. And I think there is a significant price difference that you can still see. And in India, what happens is you could also see a lot of entry barriers coming in very soon, as we also were discussing that yesterday. So those entry barriers will make a big challenge. And then second thing is, if you look into the rural segment, if you look into the tier 2 and tier 3 even industries and segments of the cities, this is something that can actually make a very good use case there.
And maybe kind of talk a bit more wider, right? Like because especially on the Indian market, right? We have a very global audience, people listening from all around the world. And I think maybe understanding India a bit better, especially from a battery angle. So maybe from a system perspective, right? What you have been working on, I know you have built battery systems, etc. Like what is really important for the Indian market? Maybe some of your learnings to it.
I think first understanding the customer mindset is the most important thing for the Indian market. Without that, you just cannot be existent in the Indian market. It's very different because Indian mindset is way different from a European mindset, okay. The second thing I've understood is make them understand what is your application that you are going to use these batteries for, and how do you want to really solve the problem of the customer. So when I do that, I can really make a space for them, give them a product that solves their problem, and give them a product which is robust, long life, and which is value for money. So it's important to understand that what is the value you're creating for yourself and your customer. That is how you will deal with the Indian market. That is exactly what you can do in the Indian market.
That's what kind of you just touched on the mindset. So you think the price sensitivity is one of the big ones, or any other aspects?
Price sensitivity, then availability, trust on the technology. These are certain factors which have been really at the forefront for quite a while now. Like for example, when we said EVs, at that time it was range anxiety. But today there is a shift in the mindset. Today it's the charging anxiety, which is more troubling the EV mindset, today. And then if you look at ESS, it's the pricing, it's the technology, it's the availability, it's the trust factor, because we have seen fires across the globe, right, on this, and it's not easy to understand the root cause. I mean, saying just thermal runaway doesn't, it does not give you the root cause. Why was there a thermal runaway is the important question. What led to that fire inside the battery, And I'm very proud to say that, in last almost 12 to 13 years of my existence into the battery domain, we have not had fires and warranty claims.
Yeah. And maybe also, because I think it's really an important aspect, right? We see it also in other discussions in Europe and in the US, and you get a lot of backlash, right? Once you have these fires, we don't want to avoid that. Absolutely. And especially when you have, on the safety aspect, maybe we can touch a bit on the safety, because I know you're very passionate about the topic, also from a standardization standpoint. Maybe you could share a bit more about the standardization work you've been involved in.
Yeah, so I'm also involved in the standardization with the UL, with BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards, with IEC. And what I feel is that we all write good standards, but we somewhere lack implementation of these standards, Somewhere that compulsion has to come in every layer of making that entire ecosystem. We make standards, but we don't implement them well. So I would still suggest and submit a case that we need to somewhere have more robust implementation of these standards to make the ecosystem safer. Like when EV fires were there in India last year, what happened was then there was a lot of investigation, and there was new standard that came in, and there was reports by Niti Aayog and DRDOs and everybody, all the apex authorities of the country, and then there was this standard that they made some mandatory changes. So why should we wait for an incident to happen and then make it mandatory? When already such good standards are written, let's make them mandatory before let's go into the preventive mode rather than into the corrective mode. So that is important.
Yeah, I think makes a lot of sense. Looking a bit on the system, on the pricing again, like what do you think are the drivers for kind of getting cheaper systems? Do we need more cheaper cells? Do we need more smarter, cooling, whatever it is? Like, do you have any thoughts on that?
I think we need more value. We need to understand more value and not just the price, because what happens is, if you are in a desert, say for example you are in a desert at 50 degrees and 55 degrees or 60 degrees, a cheap battery without, I should not use the word cheap, but a low cost battery with no cooling systems or no ventilations and mechanisms which are temperature cutoffs or the right thing, it will not make sense. It will not perform. So you have eventually wasted your entire investment. It's gone down the drain. Rather, at the same time, if I invest in a battery which is having all the cooling mechanisms which can withstand those temperatures, and if I have to pay a slight amount of premium on that, and my product functions for another say 10 years, my ROI is much better than having the entire investment blocked and wasted and gone down the drain. So this is the economics and value that companies or the users have to really understand on what technicality with the value for money is something that I'm getting. And once that concepts and attitudes change globally, things will be much more easier for having an adoption in battery storage and EVs also for that matter.
Yeah. And then also there's a topic a lot again, the CEO roundtable yesterday about localization, indigenization, yes. Looking really at the Indian market, and this big discussion, what is required in India and what should really be produced, should 100%, 20%, 80%, of different things. And I know Make in India is a big topic also. I think you're also involved in that. So maybe you could share with your perspective on.
Yeah, I've been doing this right since 2015, when I had a German collaboration, and then I started and I proposed to them, let's make it in India. And they agreed, and then we are all making the batteries in India and supplying to Europe, US and other markets as well. But what happens is, what we did was we smartly played the game that we did not want to do a cell indigenization. We have to play with our strengths. So our strength was on the electronics, on the software, on the assemblies, and making the systems more perfect and robust, on the entire BESS. So except the cell, I have indigenized everything in India. So in India, I'm probably the first manufacturer of active balancing smart indigenous designed and made in India BMS. And I've been doing that since a long time now, and I've perfected that, and that is sold even in Europe and in US markets.
No, that's really, really exciting. I think that's also something I found really exciting here walking around, that I think there's a lot of different equipment which is getting produced in India, which I personally wasn't aware of. And
exactly.
I think this is quite eye-opening.
Yeah, and then India also can do something is like, we need to focus on cell manufacturing, but there is an entire ecosystem that comes. There are so many machines that are needed to make these cells that could be indigenized. Even they are imported from the neighboring countries, that could have been indigenized. Of course, BMS and the software, like we are the ones who have a preventive predictive monitoring at Vision Mechatronics. We have started this way back in 2017, preventive predictive monitoring, where we can actually, with the amount of data that we have, we can actually predict 3 months in advance that your batteries are going to go bad now.
Lithium ion,
yeah. So imagine if we can do so much, can we not create safe and robust systems in India? Of course we can, and not just for India, we can do it for the world. So it's Make in India for the world, and that's what I'm trying to achieve.
That's exciting. And I think maybe you could, I don't know if you can share a bit more about like the volumes you've been working with now in your batteries.
I've been like now close to 3 gigawatts.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So 3 gigawatt hours roughly.
Yeah, roughly, yeah.
That's quite significant. And now you're opening up your new second life, so it's another.
Yeah,
topic.
that's a second life thing, and I should invite you as well to come and see it. Yeah, it'll be nice. Yeah.
And then maybe also one other aspect is, which also we are quite passionate about, right, with Battery Associates and the Battery MBA, etc., is women in batteries.
And
very proud of the over about 30% women in our community as well as in the Battery MBA. But there's a lot more to do, and I think even yesterday we had like a show of hands, how many women are in the room, and
there were just 3.
Yes, this was a CEO roundtable, but also in the larger audience as well. Definitely not enough. So what can we do?
Okay, I have been working globally on women empowerment issues. In fact, I am also a member of Council of Engineers of Energy Transition at United Nations. So, there again I'm the only Indian female passport holder out there, official Indian person out there. So, what I see is we need to talk at the level where these young girls and young minds are understanding that we need more feminine energy to come into the energy sector, to the electricity sector. Second is we need to talk to their parents, because still now, even now, there is a stigma that the energy sector is a difficult sector. The electricity sector is a very difficult sector. It's a very laborious sector. However, times have changed now. It's no more laborious. Even the designs and even the development of systems is far easy now. So, we need to tell these young girls that it's easy. What one step I did in my company was, we were falling short of course the skills are not there. You can't find engineers or diploma holders for this sector, right? So what I did is I tried training these young girls from ITI, and they were so scared. They were like, what if we do something wrong and if there's a boom, because everybody says that they will catch fire, but it's not like that. So I told them, we have tech, right? The world has reached a technology state where I can just connect to anywhere in the world, right? With the new mobile phones, with the new IoT systems and all the data that is available. And we have implemented IoT in our battery in 2015. People are now talking about IoT in batteries. We did it back then. So what I told these young girls was that, okay, you go to the site. I will stand on the other side of the phone, okay? Despite all my service personals and teams available, I said, I will be with you and I trust you, you can go and do it. Instilling that confidence in them, and today I have a team of these young girls who are far superior than any other technicians that would be available to solve or service out anything on the field, and they're not scared of going to any difficult places, any difficult terrains, because most of these energy storage requirements are from the rural India, where reaching that space itself would sometimes take you maybe 2 days of travel. They're so distant and they're so far apart. And then another thing that I did was, I designed the products in such a way that whoever it is, a woman or a child or an old man or a young or an old woman or any person can do a DIY analysis and a DIY kind of first aid to the system and an emergency response, really. I did that because I realized that there could be times when we are not reachable. There could be an SOS. I have seen those, during COVID times, traveling was so difficult and reaching the space would require so many permissions. So what we did was, at that time is, we have these, special fuse boxes kept, which is just open like a drawer, put the fuse in and close it. So on the phone, we just told one of these ladies, the fuse had blown off because of an lightning that had fallen on the solar panels. So we just told her, open the drawer, change the fuse and close it, and just press the button again and your system starts. So make it easy for people. Design in a fashion, right from the inception of the product till the grave, from the whole life cycle, you got to design it in such a way, from wheel to grave, that you have the customer in mind, and it should be easy. Like we had a challenge with your connectors, they were too heavy and bulky to push in and push out, and then women used to say, oh, they're too heavy for us and they're too tight. So we changed the model again there, taking the feedback. So you have to design the product, you have to design a service, you have to make your courses keeping women in mind, which have not been done, because these products and courses have always been designed by men, right? So that change has to come in the mindset, that change has to come in academia also. Then there has to be an industry academia partnership where you talk about getting these young minds on board. I'm being gender neutral here, not just men or women, but getting both on board, because imagine if you do not have the next generation in the energy sector, where will you have electricity on your mobile phone to see the YouTube shorts, to see Instagram reels, or to even have a podcast like this? So this sector needs you right now. All of the young people who are listening to this podcast, we need you now, and we need you to be in this sector. This is a hardcore sector where we need very intelligent, young, bright minds, and we can't do it without you. We really cannot do it without you.
Love it. I think we're going to conclude it there. I think that's some really, good advice, and I think very much resonates also to the work we are doing. So really appreciate you sharing it. And I think with this, I just want to thank you all for listening today for this Battery Insiders podcast here from India. And also really want to thank Dr. Rashi Gupta for sharing your insights with us, and I'm sure we're going to stay in touch. So thanks so much.
Definitely. Thank you so much for having me here. It was an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.